Who taught you to hate the color of your skin? Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Brother Malcolm X, excerpt from a speech that you've heard me go on about, probably one of his best. A speech entitled, appropriately enough, Who Taught You to Hate Yourself? Appropriate then. For black men in America in the 1960s, it was poignant, it was topical, it was timely, it was necessary. Sadly enough, it was largely disregarded for reasons that we'll go into a little bit later. But you've heard me speak about it in the context of white Americans of Northern European descent and how we could probably use a dose of the same philosophy. How the same ideal applies to white Americans of European descent in the modern age, with white leftists at control over all the power centers of American culture. From that same speech, you can't hate your origin and not end up hating yourself. You can't hate Africa and not hate yourself. And the same could be applied to Europe. The same could be applied to European cultural standards, European culture itself, and indeed Western civilization. You can't hate your origin and not end up hating yourself. You can't hate Europe as a white American of European descent and not hate yourself. And that white European self-loathing has reached epic proportions. Looking at Europe, they're in probably one of the worst places they've ever been. Some people, even here on this program, I'm constantly having to admonish to put down the black pills. I say that the UK and Europe are not out of the fight yet, but I understand the sentiment that so many people carry, seeing what we're up against and how far behind the eight ball we are with regard to that, particularly in the UK. It's overwhelmed, but it's overwhelmed from outsiders. And I won't lie, and I won't minimize. They are up against it. They are in for a fight that will literally determine their continued existence. But is that fight any less here in the United States, even if the nature of it is different? Earlier this week, as Brother Sonny Pazikis went into on his own program, an incident in Frisco, Texas, where Mr. Carmelo here stabbed Anthony Metcalf to death over an argument involving a seating arrangement. For all the talk about smoothing over racial divides and how minimal that racial divide is, we had it laid out for us immediately after that incident in a way that was undeniable, that was irrefutable. Not one single person opining on either side of that issue could say that race did not play a role in their opinion of the incident, even before the facts came out. And as the facts came out, rather than adjust their position in accordance with the facts as they were emerging, they wrapped the facts around their preconceived notions and preconceived opinions. Now, this is nothing new in the United States. It just hasn't been laid out as brutally in a long time. But that divide exists. We remember the last time it was so blatantly brought to the forefront in the Trayvon Martin incident with George Zimmerman. And again, no one could deny on either side that objectivity went right out the window. You tell me that race didn't play a factor in your opinion of that incident, I will call you a liar to your face. Why? Because some of us are old enough to remember the most heavy and irrefutable time that was brought to the forefront, and that was the verdict in the O.J. Simpson case. How many of you here are old enough to remember where you were exactly when that verdict was read and how powerfully it illustrated the divide. Do you guys remember this picture on a college campus? The faces say it all. A man literally took off the head of his wife, and yet there was rejoicing in him being found not guilty. Why? Because the facts of the case, as was later borne out, what many of us knew at the time, no, that had nothing to do with it. It is the most basic driving principle of human behavior, the in group and the out group. Tribalism, pure and simple. Feel about that how you will, but deny it at your own peril. Immediately after the incident, Anthony Metcalf's father came out and prostrated himself as would be expected with white men these days, begging us not to politicize it, begging us not to racialize it. As if had the races of the perpetrator and the victim been different, it wouldn't have been immediately politicized and racialized by every single guiding factor of the cultural zeitgeist, from academia to media to social commentators, you name it. We know how this would roll. Now, again, feel about that how you will, but it's about time we stopped denying it. When I heard Metcalf's father apologize, I was reminded of a number of cases from the past, most prominently Amy Biehl. She was an upstanding college student, the best type of person on the left, a true traditional liberal, someone who genuinely believed in the better nature of mankind, someone who genuinely believed in the better angels of that nature, and someone who put her ass where her rhetoric was. She was an anti-apartheid activist. She went to South Africa, again, to put her ass where her rhetoric was. And for her trouble, said ass was dragged out of her motor vehicle by a group of angry black men and stoned to death in broad daylight. When you think about the enormity of that act of violence, when you think about the atrocity of that act of violence, apology isn't generally the first thing that comes to mind. However, that's exactly what her parents did. They sought to intervene in the case in ANC controlled, by that point, South Africa, to see that her daughter's killers were spared any criminal punishment, communed with them to build a better future going forward. Now, in line with Christian doctrine of forgiveness, something we'll do a deep dive on a little bit later in the program, in line with Christian doctrine of forgiveness, that would make her parents more a Christian in the doctrinal sense than any of us. But that would also serve to deny our humanity. But that's just one case. We all remember Shannon Christian and Christopher Newsom. Actually, let me take that back. Some of you may never have heard of the case of Shannon Christian and Christopher Newsom. They were kidnapped, carjacked by 4 blacks, and tortured and murdered in a way that I'm not even comfortable describing here. The DAs refused to prosecute it as a hate crime, and the American media, when they acknowledged it at all, acknowledged it in the most apologetic sense. Every time a white kid is murdered by a black kid, or a white adult for that matter, murdered by a black adult, it all becomes performative white guilt. Now, I think I can speak for what black Americans won't say publicly, but they're pretty much over it. The white guilt thing doesn't impress them anymore. In fact, they're getting kind of bored with it because it generally comes from the same white liberals that have destroyed their community from the inside out. Whenever it's blacks murdering whites or engaging in violence against whites, it's always performative apology from the white crowd. when those races of the perpetrator and the victim are different, well, the end is equally predictable, as was exhibited throughout the entire year of 2020 and what we're about to see again. Now, is this really a black on white thing? To a degree, that would be undeniable. But I'm going to refer you back to Brother Malcolm. The white liberal differs from the white conservative only in one way. The liberal is more deceitful than the conservative. Both want power, but the white liberal is the one who has perfected the art of posing as the Negro's friend and benefactor. True when he spoke those words, true to this day. They had no regard for black Americans except as useful shock troops for the intended leftist goal of undermining the United States and ultimately undermining and destroying Western civilization. It's pathology by any reasonable definition. But black America at the time made the perfect shock troop. They had been kept uninformed, they had been deliberately kept uneducated, and they played towards those violent tendencies to set them against white working class Americans. I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that working class whites have more in common with working class blacks and vice versa than either of those two demographics will ever have in common with the elite class of white liberals. I have more in common with the black working class than I will ever have in common with this set. The very people that seek to foment that unrest to their own goal. They like to profess and pay lip service to paying attention to the interests of the black community in the same way that they profess to, in their socialist way, give a damn about the interests of the white working class. How many times have we heard that from these people? Why does the white working class keep voting against its own interests? These people wouldn't know the first thing about our interests, nor would they know anything about the genuine interests of the black community. Again, white working class has more in common with the black working class than either will ever have in common with this lot you're looking at right here. And yet, for decades, it was effective for them to use inner city blacks as their shock troops. But like so many other things now, we are in a time of flux, the likes of which history couldn't have even anticipated. We're past the tipping point. The shift has already begun. We are seeing blacks come around to the conservative movement more than ever because they are realizing at long last what Democrat white working class people realized much earlier, that this socialist class that pays lip service to their interests couldn't give a damn about them and just sees them as effective pawns. We have politicians like Dr. Carol Swain, and educators like Dr. Carol Swain, an amazing woman, by the way. She has written some books that are well worth reading. You can do a deep dive on your own. I'm not going to do the Google searches for you. Who has been unabashedly conservative, and while she was regarded as whatever the female version of Uncle Tom would be for decades, people are coming around to recognizing what people like she and Thomas Sowell have been trying to tell the black community all along, and thus the black working class aligning with the conservative movement and the conservatives among the white working class, up to and including Second Amendment activism, for all the preconceived notions that they think that all white people are racist and are terrified by the prospect of black gun owners. This group of NRA members right here would tell you that that couldn't be further from the truth. And I can tell you from personal experience at range after range, that'll bring the races together like nothing else. A mutual love and respect for the firearm, and a mutual love and respect for the responsibility that dictates the kind of people that are generally considered gun people. This at a recent NRA rally. And of course, the fact that this picture comes from the London Guardian, who never met a gun lover that they didn't find a reason to hate. But, that's why we broke from Britain. Doesn't matter. It's all coming together now. And I have much more in common with this woman, these men, and these men than I will ever have in common with these maggots. Leftism is cancer, boys and girls. And we are slowly but surely, collectively, here in the United States, coming to realize that. And it is bridging the gap of the racial divide in a general sense. But then incidents like the Frisco stabbing come up and we see who we are at our core. Tragic, but true. Appreciate it, lament it, but deny it at your own peril. I'll refer you back again to Brother Malcolm. If you form the habit of taking what someone else says about a thing without checking it out for yourself, you'll find that other people will have you hating your friends and loving your enemies. That was true for decades between the white working class and the black working class. We hated each other and we didn't even know why across the board. I'm calling out conservatives and liberals on this one. The black working class just took the word of the left, became their shock troops. The white working class just took the word of that old generation that is on its way to die out. We hated each other and didn't know why, but that gap is getting bridged, and we're going to need that here in the United States, because the black working class and the white working class are going to have to recognize our strength together in the face of common enemies, like the Death to America crowd right here, and like the violent criminal gangs that we're all working together to oppose. In historically black neighborhoods in Los Angeles at the worst of the migrant invasion, let's call it what it is, immigrants from Central and South America, including what would later be known as Tren de Aragua and MS-13, were going into historically black neighborhoods and committing violence in an act that even LAPD was calling ethnic cleansing. Once again, white working class and black working class have more in common together here in the United States than we will ever have in common with this common enemy here or this common enemy here, because we are bound together as Americans. But that speaks only for America. Europe is a separate issue, because we don't have a class of working class blacks in Europe to decide whether or not we want to be aligned with or not. It's just us. All we have is ourselves. All we have is our shared cultural history, our shared European blood, and our shared white skin. So in America, we are having the discussion at long last that we need to have. We are forming the bonds at long last that we need to have. But there will be no such alliances in Mother Europe. In Mother Europe, you may not like it, and it may make you uncomfortable, but all we have to cleave to is our own. And in the sense of clinging to our own, in the words of David Lane, however uncomfortable he may make you, we must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children. This isn't about hate. This is about self-preservation. This isn't about hate. This is about self-defense. This isn't about hate. This is about self-determination. All of these factors were things that were at the root of Brother Malcolm's worldview for his own people. And God bless him for that. We need to take a page out of that playbook, or we are going to tolerate ourselves right out of existence. Open with Malcolm X, close with David Lane. Only on Planet Bart. The opinions expressed by the Reverend are his own and no one else's on the planet. Not friends, not foes, not supporters, not detractors, not sponsors. And I cannot stress this enough for the 3 or 4 weeks, I'm going to continue to have one here. Certainly not employers. That goes out for the sake of you docs happy Antifa maggots out there. In any case, the aforementioned views have been adjudicated thought crime in all jurisdictions. Consider yourself warned. They are coming from the heart. They are guided by the mind, and they are guaranteed to stretch open that unwilling maw and choke you with fistful after latex glove clad fistful of the truth cock until you choke to death and bleed out through your eye sockets if it becomes necessary to do so. How about don't push me? In any case, welcome back once again, boys and girls. It's time for the Sunday sermon. I don't know, man. Take it for what it's worth. We're going to be doing some deep dives, and it may get ugly. But in the meantime, in between time, where's the enthusiasm, people? Everybody in for the drum roll. Come on. Happy Sunday, poison squirrels. It is time once again for the Sunday sermon. Happy you made it out. Coming hard, charging out of the starting gate, as we always do, with that bumper music from Red Desert, gut-stomping rock and roll band from the smoldering embers and crumbling ruins of the once great American city of Minneapolis, Minnesota. The name of the band is Red Desert. The name of the track is Older, No Wiser. Every week I get a little bit older. Every week you guys get to decide if I've gotten any wiser. Some weeks I do better than others. This week, total coin toss. I will leave it up to you. But before we get off into this thing, how about we go for the jump off with our roll call and see which one of the usual suspects has shown up. And look at this. First and foremost, the OG Sinner Sister herself, the Divine Miss M. Mwah! The Divine Miss Emmy, happy to have you on board. And of course, long close second, Brother Roman. Good to see you, brother. It's going to be interesting. David taking the bronze medal, man. You're early, Dave. Good to see you out here, buddy. Thanks for showing up. Brother Bill Wade, God bless you, man. God bless you. You've been on my mind, bro. You've been on my mind quite a bit. And I think I may give you a call once this whole thing is over with, man. I hope you were doing well, man. It's always a pleasure to have you on board, and it's always a pleasure to know that you are my brother and a part of my life. God bless you, man. God bless you, and I'm glad that our paths crossed. And I'm glad that you're here. Going to keep rolling with it. Speaking of brothers in Christ, Deacon Mark on the back porch, no doubt, with Ida enjoying some adult sodas and some smokable consumables. Have at it, ladies and gentlemen. I will try to deliver best I can for you this evening, man. A little wore out. Very, very busy week on the job site, but we're making it, man. Brother Joel Allen Jackson on board. Knuckles up, chin down. Evening, everyone. I love it, man. Shows up ready for the fight. We're spoiling for it, man. We're spoiling for it. And you know what? We're about to get it probably sooner than later. And, of course, you know if Roman's here, his lovely wife, Carrie. Happy to have you on board, sweetheart. Good to see you. Continuing to roll, George Preacher. Hi, everyone. This is going to be a good one, I feel. You know what? I'm going to attempt to deliver, man. What's going to set it, George, is whether I'm able to keep that level of visceral rage in check enough to stay focused and on message. That's going to be what's going to determine how this works out tonight, man. So let's see if we can pull it together. Ryan Hoostal, all right, man. Cool, man. Bro, you're a regular now. You're a regular. Thank you, man. You honor me, bro. You honor me. And I appreciate the posts that you're making on my pages, you know, the little back and forth, chopping it up a little bit. Always cool when you show up with a comment. Always cool when you show up even just with a reaction. So I know you stop by. It's like kind of you stopping by and saying hi. You know, leave a little emoticon there like, there's my smiley face. There's my thumbs up. I'm out. You know. So you're kind of like the stealth poster. I like that. Anyway, Brian, man, happy to have you on board. Jake, dude, all I can say is today's show better be really spicy, and I mean juicy. You had better bring it. These are my demands. You know, you're all puffed up and full of yourself there, Jake. I like that. These are my demands. These are my demands. Like, what, are you holding hostages? You know? Did I leave my testicles somewhere and you got them in a mousetrap? Like, come on, man. You know I'm always going to try to bring it, man. Whether I succeed in that mission, that is in the hands of the boss man and the carpenter, brother. I can only bring what I can bring. So hopefully, Mr. Demands, we will be able to deliver for you. The mighty, mighty Stone. Good to see you, brother. Live the 3, bro. Live the 3. Love you, Mike. Always good to have you on board. Always good to have you on board. Keep scrolling. Let's see if we got some more regulars. I think I might have covered all the usual suspects. Look at this, brother Phil, man. Phil kind of ducks in. You know what I mean? He like never makes a big deal out of a whole lot of commentary or anything like that, or a big sweeping hello. He just kind of shows up like, "Hey guys, what's up?" You know. But Phil, good to have you on board, and of course, brother Roger. Look at this. Been a while for me. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to have you here, man. Roger, you know what? After we get through the roll call, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna fill y'all in on Roger a little bit, man. Just the kind of person he is. He's one of those godly men that you just know, man. You just know is going to do great things in life, even when they're young. You know what I mean? And he has never failed in that aspect. Why shouldn't race be the factor? Honest question. And Jake, we're going to get into all of that. We're going to get into all of that. Short answer is, it is the factor. It is the prime factor, and we can't get away from it. Be the tooth amongst the grass, or many times speak with few heads think. Brother Ryan showing up with the appropriate quote at exactly the right moment, right here at the end of the bumper music, man. Wow, played that all the way out. That was beautiful. I promise, guys, we did not orchestrate that. We did not orchestrate that before the program. I promise you that was not part of the show prep. It just happened to work out really, really well. And Roger showing up happened to work out really well. And Ryan popping in right at the end there with a nice quote, man. Let's roll through that one more time for you guys that missed it. Here, you guys ready? Be the tooth amongst the grass where many tongues speak, but few heads think. Right on. God bless you, Ryan. Been a week. It's been a week. Let's get the sponsor shout outs out of the way, man, so we can really jump into the meat of this thing. And don't let me forget, I gotta puff up my boy Roger a little bit. Sponsor shout outs real quick, of course. Roman, one of my oldest and dearest friends over at opiumtales.com. They're the erotic pinups and portraits people. He and his lovely wife Carrie and Roxy and Allie and a bevy of beautiful women over there. He's doing beautiful watercolor work of beautiful naked women, and the site has testosterone-driven commentary that on Planet Bart is considered a trifecta. Plus, he's one of my oldest and dearest friends. So take care of the people that are taking care of me. Take care of the people that are taking care of the program. Go see my boy over at opiumtales.com. Look for him on Amazon. Roman Riva. He's got Roman Freely. From Dork to Pimp Daddy got pulled. He's got Roman Freely, which is a collection of his watercolor work, and he's got several pieces of short fiction out now, which, again, owing to hectic schedules and between work and training and everything, I have not had a chance to sit down with one of those short fiction pieces. I'm going to make it a point to do that this week, but take it on my word, man. If it's a creative endeavor and Roman is part of it, it's going to be worth your time and it's going to be worth your money. So give it a shot, man. That is Roman Riva, opiumtales.com. You can find him on Amazon. Go check him out. And while we're there, my Viking brothers, Casey and Dusty Tellison, Nordic Smoke Barbecue, the only legit barbecue in the inland Northwest. Period. End of statement. Full stop. Bar none. Forget it. Sit down. Shut up. You're wrong. Guys who are over, which side do I point to? Yeah, guys who are over here in the comments that have experienced Nordic Smoke Barbecue, they will all speak for it. They will all vouch for it. You guys, if you ever, dude, that would be a reason. You know how like some restaurants are like destination thing. If you ever like you want to put together a Barnosphere gathering or just want to stop in and visit, that by itself would be reason to come see me up in Spokane, just to be able to say, man, I had some of that Nordic Smoke Barbecue and it's totally badass. And while we're talking about authors, Dusty now is doing the bulk of, and by bulk of, I mean like almost all of the work, running the smoker truck now. And of course, the Viking Longship, the big smoker truck, is out sailing the asphalt seas around Spokane. They're setting up everywhere. Check them out on social media if you want to find out where they're going to be this week. But Casey, who is a saw gunner, combat vet, United States Marine Corps, has gone on to bigger things. He has passed the bar. He was a practicing attorney. I have him on retainer. I trust him with my life in every sense of the word. And he's got a book out called Freaks of a Feather. That is available on Amazon, published by Latop Press out of Spokane, Washington. Freaks of a Feather is a combat memoir that started out as a suicide note. That, boom, right there is about all the promo I should need to give it. But I'm going to give it a little more because that's Casey and that's my bro. He is an astonishingly gifted writer. You definitely want to check that out. And again, anyone over here in the comments will tell you if they've read the book. It's yeah, man. It's great. It's actually two different parts of Les Miserables I put together. I mean, it's brother. I'm all about clear, concise. I'm all about clear, concise wordplay, bro. And that one stuck. You know, brevity being the soul of wit. You know, you got to have something that just rolls. It's like boom. You know, tooth among the grass. You know, where many mouths speak, but few heads think. Boom. Clear, concise, got the point, paints the picture. That's totally cool, man. Totally cool. But I appreciate the quote, Ryan. I'm going to get a little sip here because mouth's starting to get a little bit dry. My liquid enthusiasm here. And of course, quick shout out to Iron Infidel. They're not sponsors of the program, but they make a really good product with the battle bottle here. Keeps the hot stuff hot, the cold stuff cold. Got a pocket for your cell phone, pocket for your wallet, clip for your keys, and nice little grab handle. So if you're going to the gym, you don't feel like packing a gym bag, just take your battle bottle, man. You are good to go. All right. Thank you, Roman. Yes. Casey Tellison, Freaks of a Feather. Definitely check that out and take good care of our sponsors and all of that good stuff. So, I guess this week was like pretty uneventful, right? I mean, nothing major happened like domestically or on the international front. Where do we begin? Which one was? It all ties together, man. Particularly with the opening. Everybody saw what happened in Frisco, Texas. Everybody by now is relatively well acquainted. And guys, what I want here is feedback because the comments that are going to take place over here are actually going to guide some of the discussion. Because again, some of this stuff some of the stuff I've got to keep. I've got to keep the visceral anger down if I really want to convey the message, because otherwise it comes off exactly the way that everyone else will try to paint it, right? Because everyone else, you know exactly how they're going to paint the opener, simply because because I closed with a David Lane quote. You know, the fact that I preceded that with like 4 Malcolm X quotes got nothing to do with nothing. Not that I'm concerned about it, because you guys know how I carry myself. If the truth the truth is the truth. If the truth makes me a sexist, then I'm a sexist. If the truth makes me a misogynist, then I'm a misogynist. If demonstrable truth makes me a racist, then I'm a racist. Sorry, but there it is. And what we're here to talk about are facts. What we're here to talk about is the way emotion governs how people are willing or able to observe and put those facts into practice. And we're going to explore drawing a line between the two, because that's something that very few people are able to accomplish. We saw what happened in Frisco, right? Um, when Carmelo Anthony stabbed that poor kid. Okay, it was a dust up. Yes, it was a dust up like plenty of us have had 100 times a day. But why did something escalate like that? Why? You know, you don't jump from, and again, because of the race factor, I've seen people who are. Yes, thank you. Right. Thank you. David Lane's words are all the more relevant in 2025 and beyond. Absolutely, brother. I could not agree more. I could not agree more. But being able to say that, first of all, you hear that. Okay, since we're here, Brian, let's take the 14 words, right? We must secure the existence of our people. Yes, I did see the page. I saw that, and I actually retweeted, Ryan, I actually retweeted one of the tweets that came down with regard to that. In fact, I think my Twitter page may still be up. X.com notifications. We'll get to it in a minute. The 14 words. If you Google the 14 words, it's going to point you to all sort of white nationalist sites, and how that very phrase is hate speech as determined by the Anti-Defamation League and all manner of other stuff. Doesn't matter. None of that. None of that is really relevant. Let's look at the 14 words themselves. We must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children. Okay. I'm waiting for someone to point out how that is hateful. I am waiting for someone to show me how that statement, in and of itself, regardless of who is uttering it, if the racial connotations were replaced with any other ethnicity, how that would even make someone raise an eyebrow, right? Imagine Brother Malcolm in this day and age, and the running joke used to be that I'm probably the only white nationalist who considers Malcolm X a personal hero and role model, at least since the death of George Lincoln Rockwell. So if Brother Malcolm were to utter those words, and he did, in different iterations and what have you, if he were to say we must secure the existence of our people and a future for black children, would anybody have lifted an eyebrow? Even in the 60s, that's not anything that comes off as militant. That is basic self-preservation. And the fact that self-preservation is being labeled hatred now, you know, I don't have time for people that carry that kind of hate around. I'll even go, since we're already on a tangent. Let's just go further down the line there. Um, One of the things that's infuriating me right now, again, separating ethnicity from politics, from spirituality, from culture, and all of the other things, all of the wins that we are piling up on the conservative side right now, and there are people in the stiff arm salute crowd that are having a fit because Trump is too comfy with the Jews. What the hell is wrong with you, man? I mean, like, legit. I understand that's the ideology. I understand, your problem with the tiny hat tribe. I get it, but can we not take a victory and let it be a victory? Can we not do that? Is it that inordinate? Okay, so if you're pushing it to the point where if he's bombing Iran, I'm going to be really upset about that, because the fact that he kept us out of war was one of the things that I carried around like a badge of honor for being one of his supporters. So if all of a sudden we do find ourselves at war with Iran, or boots on the ground in Yemen, or any of a number of other places on behalf of the, again, let me repeat for those of you in the back, for the sake of the godless, Christ denying, secular state of Israel, yeah, I'm going to be a little uptight about it. But if the Mango Menace decides that he wants a photo op praying by the Wailing Wall, let it happen, man. Let it happen. Look what he's doing. He's locking down on the tariff front. He's deporting. He's deporting scumbags that we spent the last 4 years letting every waste of human flesh, piece of crap, third world savage into the country with no vetting whatsoever. He's turning that around and getting them the hell out. And you guys want to get upset because he doesn't hate the Jews enough. Come on, man. These are the kinds of subtle nuances that I'm talking about here. But that went too far down the rabbit hole, and I completely lost track of what we were talking about originally. Yes, okay. The fact that race was a factor the minute that it hit. I have seen black conservatives that are known to be, and it's not all of them. Okay, most of the black conservatives that I am acquainted with and that I interact with were like, yeah, dude, we can call this what it is. But I did see the knees jerk on a number of my black conservative friends. It's something that is innate to it's something that's innate to humans as a species, right? We have the in group, out group. We have the tribalism. We have the keep to our own. It's hardwired into our DNA, right? And as such, you're going to come down. You're always going to pull for the home team, right? No, that's not calling your intellect into question. That's not calling your devotion to your own. That's not, saying that you're a bigot or a hater or anything. It's hardwired into our DNA to fight for the home team, right? The flip side of that is when you override that basic innate capacity to pull for the home team and have it to where you're actually, and I hear this from college kids, like college-educated people. I've literally heard this come out of their face that they can't wait until they can't wait until all the white people die off. They literally can't wait because white people have been responsible for all the problems in this world, and the world's going to be a better place with all the white people dead. And of course, my knee-jerk reaction to that is to just pass them a handgun and be like, "Hey, okay, start. Charity begins at home, Sparky. Let's see how committed you are to this premise." Okay, I've gone way too deep and way too far off the beaten path, but that is the problem with these issues. You can't, because it's so visceral and because it is so hardwired into our DNA, it's difficult to line things out and go item by item. I probably should have put some notes down on a sketch pad, but we're past that now. Remember when they riot again? The riot is the language of the unheard, right? Of course, until it's January the 6th, and then it's a violent insurrection. I digress. The kid was skipping school, all right? Carmelo Anthony, that is to say. He was skipping school. He didn't go to that school. He was skipping school at the school that he did go to. He showed up at the track meet where people rent tents, right, to keep the weather off their stuff and to manage some shade. If you guys have been out in that hot Texas sun, you know what that's about, right? So they got some shade. They got a place to put their stuff. And this guy is going around. Basically, what it comes down to is he was going around, getting under people's tents, probing around for stuff that he could loot, right? Is there an easy purse I can grab? Is there a cell phone laying around? Is there something I can, pick up and put in my pocket? That's it. There's no other reason for him to be there, okay? None. But he was addressed. Crazy how much went into the separation of father from the family and the violence that leads to rotten hell LBJ. Absolutely. And Tom, thank you for showing up. This is a problem. This is definitely a problem. And again, that problem, as I addressed in the opening, is all coming down to white liberals. It's all coming down to white liberals. Every bit of this is rooted in white liberal policies that come down to the LBJ days, right? All the stuff about prioritizing and financially incentivizing, keeping the fathers out of the homes. That's where the root of all of this is, okay? Up to and including this incident, right? This father, he's all about, I taught my son this and I taught my son that. He wants to act as if he's involved, but basic control of reflexes. He's under a tent. He's at a track meet at a place where he had no business being, right? Well, it's a free country. You can go where you want to. Yes, you absolutely can. And going somewhere is one thing. But probing around under other people's tents, being in a place where you don't have authorization to be, and someone steps to you and addresses that with you, and your response is to pull out an edged weapon and stab him to death. Sorry, Sparky. No, that doesn't apply. But again, immediately, the intellectual gymnastics kick in. People have to make it about the home team. The facts of the case couldn't be clearer. Right? Nothing that went on here justified Austin Metcalf being stabbed in the heart and killed. Nothing. Even assuming he had put hands to the kid and not the kid's backpack. And again, that one's the subject of a little bit of a shakeup, right? People are still trying to fine tune, but regardless, no matter how you fold, spindle, and mutilate the facts of this case, not one damned thing justifies this kid pulling out a blade, which, first of all, again, the effectiveness of gun-free zones, weapon-free zones, no weapons allowed. Signs all over the place, no weapons allowed. You're on a school campus. It's generally understood that there are no weapons allowed. Did a bang-up job keeping it out, didn't it? He was previously suspended, by the way, from his own school. He was previously suspended from his own school for carrying a knife to school. So this isn't without precedent, okay? What, of course, I'm going to pull this up while I'm describing this to you because I want to give us another little informal clinic in propaganda and the way that stories are framed. So we're going to go to Google. We're going to pull up Carmelo Anthony, Frisco, Texas. Let's see, Frisco, Texas. Here we go. There we go. And of course, and I'm going to pull these up before we get out of here, but the one that they're going to do first and foremost is paint it as if he, and we all saw the same thing. The same thing happened with Trayvon Martin. That's another case that I don't want to rehash or retry, but let's call it what it is. They painted one picture of Trayvon, and then the actual picture of Trayvon came out. And let's just say that there was a bit of a discrepancy between the two. It's always, oh, he didn't do nothing, and he's on his way to his volunteer shift at the orphanage, and then he's going to deliver Meals on Wheels. Let me see, and they're not even pulling it up. Look at that. I'm having to do, okay, well, here it is. So, and that's perfect, bro. That's perfect. Completely illustrates my point. Oh my goodness. Can't wait to share these with you. Give me just a second so I can pull these up. And it may or may not. So I go Carmelo Anthony, Frisco, Texas photos, and all it pulls up are the harmless little boy photos that the press has been putting out. And then I say, well, let's go a little bit better. Let's go Carmelo Anthony, Frisco, Texas photos holding AK, right? Because we've all seen that one. And what does it do? It pulls me up a picture of Carmelo Anthony in a suit, that same good guy picture, and the kid that got stabbed is fresh back from a hunting trip and holding an AR-15. It's all a matter of how these things are framed, and these are the links that they will go to try to paint things in a certain light. And it's effective, man. It's very, very effective. It colors people's judgment. Here we go. Yeah, there's the one. Okay. Boom. You guys, just try to be patient with me here. I'm having to do all this stuff on the fly. I don't have like I'm not Rogan. I can't go, Jamie, will you look that up for me? And have him pull it up. But I'm having difficulty here finding, even with a specific search, finding the photo of him holding the AK. Here we go. I think finally I'll be able to pull it down. Maybe I've got one here. Let's take a look. There we go. Boom. KA4. We'll do that. And I'll just give you a little bitty breakdown of how this all comes together and how things get framed for the purpose of the viewing public. So I looked for Carmelo Anthony photos, right? Just did a basic Google search, Carmelo Anthony photos. This one, of course, being the first one that it pulled up. Upstanding citizen, Carmelo Anthony, and then I knew that wasn't the photo that I was looking for. So I said, let's go for the one that I was looking for, Carmelo Anthony holding AK photos. And it pulled me up this one. This was the photo that it pulled me up. And again, he's looking like upstanding citizen. And meanwhile, the kid that got stabbed to death is holding assault rifles. And what kind of picture are we trying to paint there? The picture that you're trying to paint there is to avoid having to paint this picture, which was the one that I was ultimately looking for, right? And this is the same Carmelo Anthony with, the AK and the gangster attitude and every other thing. Again, it's framing. All of this stuff is framing. You couple that with the pull for the home team, in-group, out-group, tribalism, you're going to get the response. You're going to get the response that you're going for, right? Now, there's always the fallback, which is, this is what they want. They keep us fighting each other, so we won't look for common ground. Yes, that is absolutely what they're doing. And it's failing now to a greater or lesser degree because Black America is finally figuring out that they have been used as shock troops for the left for all these many, many years, right? They're figuring it out. They're swinging into conservative movements on a level that I wouldn't have even thought possible. Even just a scant few years ago, I wouldn't have even thought this was possible. They are coming around. They are walking off of the Democrat plantation, and they are getting back to the values that pulled their community together in the first place. What destroyed that? Liberal policies put together by college-educated white liberals. In that we're going to take the fathers out of the house and we're going to make it better for everything, and the government's going to be everybody's daddy. They destroyed the community from the inside out. They instituted every single piece of legislation, every single piece of policy that has decimated the Black community from the inside out. Right, the ones who are still falling for it, what was the old thing that Malcolm brought up about the House Negro versus the Field Negro? The people that are still voting Democrat, the blacks that are still voting Democrats, stay on the porch. Stay on the porch, okay? And I'm going to say that unapologetically. If you are still buying into it and you still think that the left has anything, any sort of regard for your racial interest, and let's call that what it is. They have legitimate racial interest. Every race, every ethnicity, every bloodline, every tribe, they all have legitimate interest, to include self-preservation, self-defense, and self-determination. This is something that Malcolm X saw clear as day. Do you know what George Lincoln Rockwell, the leader of the American Nazi Party at the time, he came out and said that brother Malcolm was the right and proper heir to lead the Black community. He said that he was the proper leader of Black America, right? He detested Martin Luther King. He detested Martin Luther King because Martin Luther King, among other things, was, sleeping with white women, beating them, took great pleasure in beating white prostitutes. He was a plagiarist, and he was ultimately controlled by the Tiny Hat tribe. George Lincoln Rockwell had no respect for him whatsoever. There was an immense amount of respect from George Lincoln Rockwell for Malcolm X. Tremendous, to the point where you can find this on YouTube. George Lincoln Rockwell actually shows up in full Nazi regalia with two of his henchmen in full Nazi regalia at a Malcolm X speaking engagement for the Nation of Islam, and gives Malcolm X $20 when they pass around the collection plate. Gives a donation. And you've got Brother Malcolm standing at the mic going, "We got a donation here from George Lincoln Rockwell." It is the damnedest thing. But there was a respect. There was respect between those two men. And you could feel however you want to feel about either one of them. But they were one thing first and foremost above all, and they were about taking care of their own people. All right? Getting back to the 14 words, which is how we started this rant. What is hateful about looking out for your own? What is hateful about taking pride in the accomplishment of your ancestors and the culture that they bequeathed to you? Oh, you can't take pride in that. You were born into it. You can't take pride in that. Oh, really? And that only applies to us. Why? Right. There are things about being. One of the bullet points I have here: what defines a man? What defines a man? Right. At his core. Well, that's a tough one, isn't it? And Roger, I'm glad that, this bullshit. Basically, they want us to be okay with racism towards white people. Hell no, I will always call out the real racists. Right. Everybody take a good look there. That's Roger. Well, Haley Carrion. Yeah. Does that sound like a white name to you? Yeah. If it does, it shouldn't, because he's not a white guy. Yeah. But he's calling out the BS. And this is, when I talk about, let me tell you a little something about Roger. Let me brag on my boy Roger for a minute, because I've known Roger since he was 13, 14 years old. A very great man by the name of Saul Solis. who you may have heard of. Saul and I were best friends. We were joined at the hip for 30 years, and we had a core group of kids that we taught out at Denver Harbor Park. I don't even think that tennis court even stands anymore. It's been a minute since I went over to Denver Harbor, but we trained at Denver Harbor on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We go out there and train on the tennis court, blazing heat, or in the middle of winter we're getting rained on, whatever. We were there and we trained hard, man. Saul put heart and soul into those kids. And I started training with Saul, and I wanted to go out there and I wanted to be part of this thing. And we had a good crew of guys. We had a good crew of guys. And Roger, I remember Jaime and Jose and all those kids out there. But Roger, man, there was something about Roger, and we all knew it. Me and Saul knew it from day one, man. He just had heart. We knew that this was a guy who was solid. He was solid in his moral compass. He was solid in his value system, right? Of all the people that came out of that group, this falls back to what I'm saying. Denver Harbor is Denver Harbor's a Mexican neighborhood, right? And it is a rough Mexican neighborhood. I understand it's starting to get a little gentrified now, but at the time, dodgy neighborhood, man. Very, very dodgy neighborhood. In fact, I think Roger will attest to the fact that I was probably the only white guy that would be in Denver Harbor at night without a badge. But it was a dodgy neighborhood, man. And those kids had everything against them, as we're constantly told by the Democrats. Oh, you can't, everything's lined up against them for a reason. They do it on purpose. It's like, no, man, no, 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 no. First of all, it's not being done on purpose. These are things that have taken place in the community because of policy decisions that were made on the left a long freaking time ago. But all of that aside, you say you can't rise above it. Roger's proof positive that you can. Roger's proof positive that you can. He came from that same environment as everybody else, right? And you know what? He married young. Was that right? Yep. Yep. Only white guy in a mile radius, definitely. Oh man, Roman. That's right, man. That's right. You were around for that. Roger was a badass even at 14. Yeah. Roger, I'll tell you who Roman is. You get out. We got a separate man. I'll tell you who Roman is. But yeah, he came out and trained. He came out and trained with us a couple of times back in the Denver Harbor days whenever he was here from California on summer visits, whatever. Roger's a cop. Roger's a cop and a damn good one. Damn good human being. He married young, right? He married young. That's a pitfall that a lot of people fall into, but he held it together, right? Held together as long as he could. He's had his ups, he's had his downs, but he's had every single bad thing that could come from the background that he comes from thrown at him, and he has elevated himself above. He became a law enforcement officer and a damn good one. He is a man of character. A man of character. He is a damn good husband. He's a damn good father. Right? We knew. Some people you just know. And even at 14, there was something about that kid that it was just heart, bro. It was just heart. You knew that nothing was going to shake him off. Whether that moral compass and that moral structure and that cohesive set of standards was something that he was born with, or whether that was something that came as a result of parental influence or guys like me and Saul being around him, whatever it was that shaped that, it was there, man. It was there. Boom. And he's held it together throughout his entire life. Now, every other kid that came out of that they probably carry a lot of the same attitudes that Black America was taught to have about white boys back in the day. But as you just saw, Roger doesn't carry that attitude. Roger doesn't carry that attitude. He sees through the bullshit. Roger, just out of curiosity, how many guys in the Latino community that aren't cops, right, called you out for being a Trump supporter, right? As if you were some kind of sellout, as if you were some kind of failure, as if you were somehow selling out the interests of your own people, right? This is what we get from white liberals because this is what we get from white liberals and the people that follow them because this is the only lens that they understand the world through. Do you understand? And that's why we still have the problems when incidents like what happened in Frisco, Texas happened. Now, the 14 words again, because that's where we came in. We must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children. If any other ethnicity on the planet uttered the same thing, they would be stunning and brave. They would be powerful defenders of their own cultural interests. They would be, shaking their fist at the man. They would be paragons of anti-authoritarian, you name it. Pick your college educated liberal catchphrase. They would be that. We say it as pale faces, and instantly we hate everyone else. If I were to say to you, I really, really love my son. Okay, because I do. If I were to say to you, I really, really love my son, I'd do anything in the world for him, right? Would you immediately jump to the confusion that that means I hate everybody else's kid? No, no, you wouldn't. Uh, Roger, I appreciate that, brother. Roger, I really, really appreciate it. But a sculptor, a sculptor is only as good as the clay that they work with, right? Me and Saul, me and Saul both had a lot of love for you, man. Me and Saul both had a lot of love for you, brother. We did, and we had a lot of love for all of the kids, that came out there and trained with us. But we're only as good as the clay we have to work with, right? You you just had that, bro. I don't know where the moral compass originated, but there was something innate to you that you would not be shaken off of your value system, man. You rose above. We if you had the same mindset as, and I mean, you remember Jose, right? You know, he actually, Jose actually had better skills than you did back in the day, early on. He had the potential to do a lot more skills wise, but the rest of his life was just, you know, right? He fell into it because deep down, spiritually, he was weak. Spiritually, you have always been strong. Maybe that was rooted in the church, coming up, and God looks out for the good ones, brother. God looks out for the good ones, right? We put the same amount of effort into Jose and Jaime and all the rest of those kids that we put into you. They went their way and they are where they are right now. You are who you are and how you are, right? Because of something here. And I credit personally, I credit that to the boss man. I credit that to the boss man. But it's it's an honor to see what you become, Roger. It really is. It really is. What was I? Yeah. So good people are going to rise above. Good people are going to rise above. Uh, every single race, ethnicity, bloodline, whatever, has a legitimate right to protect their own self-interest. Period. End of statement. Done. This isn't a poor whitey lamentation here. This is just an acknowledgement of how things are. It's deliberately focused, as Roger was pointing out. It's deliberately focused against white Americans of European descent, and definitely against white Europeans. Right. The thing is, we say get back to your homeless people. Fine, man, you go back to Europe. Well, at this point, I think we probably would love to go back to Europe, only we can't. We literally can't. Our homelands have been decimated by an influx of a mongrel horde of culturally incompatible, low IQ, half-wit savages, and we have allowed it to happen out of this sense of guilt. That goes back to the bullet point. Thank you for bringing me back around. Amy Biehl syndrome. That whole thing of, and I don't know what it is that is rooted into white liberal women can be amazing. I'm married to one, right? Um, But there is a limit to how far you are able to be committed to a premise before it starts becoming detrimental, before you can no longer justify it, before you can no longer look it in the face and say that it is anything but what it is, and that is masochism. Okay. I'm going to break some tables out for you again. This is not, yeah, that's where I was. All right. So if I say that I love my son, you don't automatically assume that I hate everybody else's son. If I tell you that I love key lime pie, you don't immediately assume that by extension I hate cheesecake. Do you understand? This is basic elementary stuff here. And the people that want to flip script every time I say I love my people, right? The people that want to take it and go, oh, so that means you hate everybody else. They know exactly what they're doing. And only weak minds follow that. Only weak minds follow that line of reasoning, that line of any of that, any of that. Unfortunately, unfortunately, the white liberal population is overwhelmed with weak minds. They think themselves intellectually superior. What they are is more thoroughly indoctrinated. Full stop. They are not more intelligent. I have seen more real world intelligent white people in the working class than I have ever seen come out of university. I'm not talking about the professors. I'm not talking about the elites of the elites. I'm not talking about the Rhodes Scholars. I'm talking about your average college graduate, right? I mean, he can give you a breakdown and a comparison contrast between Friedrich Nietzsche and Soren Kierkegaard like nobody's business because that was his, because he's got a master's degree in philosophy. You know what? I can give Ryan a phone call and get the same thing. And Ryan never spent a day in college, right? These people are not smarter. They're more thoroughly indoctrinated. And they feel like they are entitled to tell us lesser intellects how things are going to be. Unfortunately, the lesser intellects are the ones that live with the results of their policies. Another thing that you don't notice, all of these whites that say, yes, we've got to have diversity and it's a great thing to have black people and all these minorities in your community, they live in gated communities that are almost exclusively white. And the trend to notice among black Americans, have you noticed that the minute they achieve any kind of success, they get the hell out of the projects and into a predominantly white neighborhood? Why? We know why. We all know why. And unfortunately, we're not allowed to speak of any of these things. And even when we are allowed to speak of any of these things, people are gutless. People are gutless. University teaches you what to think, not how. Again, agreed. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you from my Asian friend. Ha ha. So you're alt right adjacent white privilege by default, I guess. Tom, I don't know what to say about that. Right? Europe is being decimated. Right? In the same way that what happens to an affluent white neighborhood when you start moving in blacks from the inner city, right? And all the problems that go along with that, oddly enough, created by white liberal policies, the same people that are living in this affluent neighborhood, what happens? Housing prices drop immediately. Why? More prone to criminal violence. They know what happens. Think about that in terms of Europe on a continental scale. Europe, in and of itself, is doing wonderfully. The influx of migrants, particularly those with an Islamic bent, is creating havoc. They don't have the same cultural standards. They don't have the same intelligence. They don't have the same will to assimilate. They don't have the same capability to build the society that they're flooding into now. But whites have been inculcated with that guilt that we have some historical debt to pay. If the light goes out on whites of European descent, it will be the only recorded time in world history that a race has built the entire modern world, conquered and explored the entire world, and then given it away to the savages out of some misguided sense of guilt. What a tragedy. People are so bent now that they would rather be dead than racist. It's that Amy Biehl syndrome. As I went over in the opener, Amy Biehl was she was an activist, an anti-apartheid activist. Now let's slice that out to the side. Apartheid, yes, apartheid was just a terrible, terrible thing. South Africans had no right. These white people went in and took their land and everything. No, first of all, historically, that's not true. When the Boers, right, the farmers, when they moved into that region of South Africa, no one lived there. It was barren. It was absolutely barren. No one lived there. No one wanted to live there. They went in and carved out and built a civilization there. They made it prosper. At which point, naturally, the Bantu and other tribes wanted to move into that region and live where the producing farms were, right? Okay, okay, said the white settlers that had built this out of nothing. You guys are welcome to live here, okay? But understand this is ours. You were living here as guests, as our guests, basically. We will pay you fairly. We will compensate you fairly for working the farms. We will do this. There are going to be certain boundaries that we're going to have set up, and that's the way that it's going to go. South Africa was productive. Johannesburg was the safest city on the entire African continent. Period, bar none. Done. Right? During the apartheid years, it was order. In the same sense that Rhodesia, right? We don't use the Z word in my house. In the same way that Rhodesia was the breadbasket of Africa, that one little country fed 2/3 of the African continent. Productive farms, proper use of resources. It was amazing what they were able to accomplish. And they literally carved that civilization out of the freaking jungle and they made it work. Almost universal employment, rising tide lifting all boats, all of that stuff. Best medical care on the entire African continent, best education on the entire African continent when white people running the show. But of course, that isn't enough. When you have groups that are bent on the elimination of the West, and I'm talking about the elimination of the West from everything from cultural values to our blood, okay? You can break bread with these people, but understand that they want you dead. At the end of the day, if these people have their way, I'm not talking about the black folks. If you ask the black folks in Rhodesia right now, if you ask the black folks in South Africa right now, the ones who haven't bought into the government line, it splits into two groups: the ones that want to kill Whitey and the ones that want him back. And unfortunately, we were headed for that divide here in the United States. We may still be. It may be irreconcilable. But these are discussions that we need to be having, right? Not out of hatred, but if for no other reason than to find common ground. And there is plenty enough common ground to be had, but we have to look at some basic statistical realities. And these are things that people are not willing to look at across the board. They're just not. Everybody made their decision about Carmelo Anthony before the facts even came out. If you were black, you were pulling for the home team. If you were white, you were pulling for the home team. Okay? Guys, it's okay. We can admit if we are going to require and demand honesty from the other side, just like charity starts at home, honesty has to start at home. You guys with me? Brian, if you're still there, sound off. Ryan, if you're still there, sound off. Right? What is this? Oh, yeah, Emmy. Yes. Emmy speaking of white Europeans, the only white European nations that aren't under siege right now are the ones who have refused to take these people in because they have acknowledged just basic factual realities. Now, this isn't, again, we're dealing with separate issues here. We're not talking about black people in America. We are talking about Africans and Middle Eastern Muslims flooding Europe. Okay. That's why I separated that right from the opening, because we're talking about two different things here. Okay. We have to look at Europe as a separate issue. And as far as Europe goes, it's got to be white Christian Europe, or there will be no Europe. Simple as that. White Christian Europe or no Europe at all. Those are the options. Pick one. Okay. Um, there's so much that is in flux historically right now. So many things that we are having to come to grips with. So many issues that we are having to wrestle with, that it boggles the mind, man. And the fact that we are so far behind the eight ball by our own. Thank you, Brian. You want to make sure you were still here, man, because I know you had some big expectations coming out of this one, man. I want to make sure I'm delivering. Jake, I think, has vanished. He made his demands and he bailed. Anyway, we put, yes, okay, Pine 01. I don't think we've met. But if you are submitting that America has to be white Christian too, yes. Short answer, yes. People want to pull back from that and bristle. That's okay, but that's a hill. That's a hill with 3 crosses on it that I'm willing to die on. How about that? Pine, do me a favor, send a message to my inbox and let me know what your birth name is. But if you're here, man, that would, but thanks. Yeah, America has to be white Christian too. I agree. Right now we're talking about Europe, but Pine, when I get back to America, please remind me of that little touchstone. Anybody else too, just remind me when we get back to America about the Christian thing. Cool. The reason why I addressed it with greater import coming out of Europe is that they have a much larger and a much more pointed problem with Islam. Okay, we have that problem, but we don't have it in the numbers that they do, and it's not as in your face over here as it is over there. Because for as white guilted as a lot of us are over here, Muslims get too far out of line over here. We can remember a day in 2001 and we get a little bristly and people might get hurt. Europe, it's tough. As I said in the opener, I understand the black pill mentality. As regards Europe, I refuse to embrace it. I will fight it every step of the way because I believe in our people. I believe in our blood. I believe in our strength. I believe in our culture. And I believe that we are ordained by Almighty God to win this thing. Okay. So no, I can't share the black pill mentality, but I certainly understand it. It's bad because the European people don't have the final result, or the final resort rather. They don't have the final resort of armed defense. They don't have guns, right? Big problem. Their leaders, our so-called leaders, all ours did was fly these guys in from Haiti. Most of the flights that they were bringing them in were coming from Haiti and Venezuela, things like that. Criminal element, but most of the Islamist, asylum seekers or whatnot. We left the border open for them. Europe actually invites them in. We can't, the European governments can't seem to get them in fast enough. We have hit a pushback point over there. Again, let me tell you why the stakes are so high so I can finish out this bullet point. The Boer genocide. Ever since the end of apartheid, I want you guys to Google South African farm murders. Most whites in America have never even heard of the Boer genocide. And if you tried to bring it up, they would say, oh, that's some Tucker Carlson, great replacement BS. And that's it, you're hateful and bigoted. And, here's a fetus and he's a Hitler and whatever you need. It's brutal what's going on in South Africa right now. A small place in South Africa called Orania, which is the pretty much the last exclusively white settlement in that region. And they are going to be marching on that. Getting back to this being Amy Biehl syndrome. Amy Biehl was an anti-apartheid activist. She was all about these black people need to be helped, and we need to put all our love behind them, and we need to build a bridge and all these other things. And in the middle of one of her operations going over there to help these people, it's disputed whether or not she was raped beforehand or after, because over there, guess what? It's really not too uncommon. But they dragged her out of her vehicle and they stoned her to death. Broad frippin' daylight. Dragged her out of her vehicle and stoned her to death. You would think that would be enough to make people go, wow, man, maybe you just can't help these people. You would think. But no, the parents got in and they are all about forgiveness, and they set up a foundation to her benefit and made sure that the four that were arrested in the stoning to death of their daughter were not incarcerated and were not put to death. They fought tooth and nail to keep any bad thing from happening to them. Now, I'm going to say this, all right, again, drawing clear distinctions as is necessary. If we are sticking letter of the law to Christian doctrine, that is a Christian response. And right now, there's at least four of you that are going, hey, no, whoa, hold up. Okay, cool. For you four out there that are going, that ain't a Christian response at all. I want you to give me the counterpoint. Okay. Am I baiting you here? Maybe. Okay. I want you to give me the counterpoint on how forgiveness in that instance is not the biblical viewpoint. I want you to defend your argument with scripture, right? I want you to present it and give me that argument. You do it in a private message. You can do it over here in the comments, however you want to do it. This is a thought exercise. As understood by the majority of the population, now that we're getting into specificity, that's my college word. I got like 3 of those. Directly, forgiveness is in line with the Christian doctrine, even there, right? For that Austin kid that got stabbed to death in Frisco, his father came out, don't racialize it, don't politicize it, I forgive them. As generally understood, that level of forgiveness is the Christian response to such things, okay? Again, you got the counterpoint. I want you to bring it. I want you to send it to me. Send me a private message. Send it to me over here in the comments, whatever you want to do. As generally understood, forgiveness is the Christian response to those things. Vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. You leave it to God, right? As generally understood, forgiveness of these people is the Christian response. I take a very different view. I take a very, very different view. The mother and the twin brother of the kid that got stabbed to death, both were less than forgiving, let's say. I saw the interview with the father, and the father was doing what whites are required to do now. We are required to prostrate ourselves. We are required to embrace being the victim. We are required to act as if we somehow deserve this because 400 years of the Middle Passage and colonialism and all these other things. He did what is required of us. So even if he did have a Christian response, he didn't do it because it was a Christian response. He did it because he's weak. God bless him. I sympathize with him for the loss, but he responded the way he did because he is weak. The kid's mother and twin brother were not so forgiving, nor, in my opinion, should they be. When they arrested the kid, his first words were, yeah, I did it. Ain't no alleged, ain't no suspect. I did it. Thumping his chest about it. And why wouldn't he? This is what we have cultivated. This is what we've cultivated. Brother Malcolm saw the threat of white liberals to the black community. I am waiting for a white Malcolm to step up and finally bring it to everyone's attention about the threat of white liberals to the white community. This is no longer, as I've lamented before, this is no longer a difference of opinion. This is no longer agreeing to disagree. This is no longer political discourse. This is no longer any of those things. This is good versus evil. And I'm not being a bit hyperbolic when I say that. When you embrace the coddling of violent felons, easy, low-hanging fruit example, District Attorney Kim Ogg in Houston, PR bond after PR bond after PR bond. If you are black or brown and you commit a violent felony, you will be released on a PR bond or a minimal cash bail. That's policy now. The people who are trying to destroy the West, when I'm talking about good versus evil, evil is what seeks to destroy the West. Evil is what seeks to destroy Europe. Evil is what seeks to destroy white flesh and blood. We must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children. If they can take something as innocuous as that and make it evil, say that that's hateful, then by extension, me saying that if you seek the elimination of white flesh and blood from the planet, if you seek to extinguish my race, then you are my enemy. Well, then that would be hateful, wouldn't it? Pardon me if I'm not about going gently into that good night. Pardon me if I have seen what happens when non-whites take over predominantly white civilizations and are left to run the show on their own. And I don't think that's a happy place to be. Rhodesia, again. Do you just do a little bit of a dive on what Mugabe and his people did in Rhodesia after they gained the upper hand? And the same thing right now is going on in South Africa. Getting back to Amy Biehl, all that hard work. Apartheid is wrong. We've got to give them, we got to give them autonomy. We got to give them rule of law. Which, first of all, it wasn't theirs to begin with. They never built it. After the Boers had carved a civilization out of a freaking wilderness, they all showed up. You got to give it back to them. Give it back. It was never theirs. And what is happening to white farmers in South Africa? The same exact thing that happened to Rhodesian farmers, Rhodesian white farmers after Mugabe and his boys took control. They're being butchered. So when Donald Trump last week said that he would give priority refugee status to white Boers fleeing South Africa, particularly from Orania, because Julius Malema and the Kill the Boer crowd, Kill the Farmer crowd, as Bill Wade was just pointing out, Julius Malema has vowed to go in to Orania and kill every last man, woman, and child. And he will. He absolutely will. And Trump said, hey, this is genocide. By any reasonable definition, we're going to provide priority refugee status to the Boers. And what did that become? More evidence of his racism. People would rather be dead than racist. People would rather be dead than even thought bigoted, racist. People will not look at the facts of a case like what came out of Frisco, Texas. Yeah, I'm bouncing around here, but this is all on the same level, guys. And if you're tracking, let me know over here in the comments. If you're tracking, let me know. Because this is all tied in, people. This is all tied in. If you cannot stand for your own blood, if you cannot stand for your own race, if you cannot stand for your own kin, and when I say kin, I'm talking kin in the sense of blood, flesh, race, tribe. If you cannot stand for your own, if you don't have the guts to say, I love my people and I will stand for my people, you're nothing. This includes anyone who wants to qualify it. Again, because if you're qualifying it, it's coming from cowardice. Do you stand for your own people? The answer should be, oh, yes, absolutely. I stand for my own people. I stand for the interests of my own people. Black, white, Asian, don't care. If I say, do you stand for the interests of your people? And your response is, well, come on, man, that's a complex question. Because, ultimately, we're all kind of, mixed. Because I'm like part European, I'm like part Asian. So, like, which part of my people am I? You're nothing. You're a fucking coward. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Been doing so much better on the F-bombs. You're nothing. You're a coward. Hey, do you stand for your own people? Well, what exactly do you mean, my people? Because we have to take into account the nuances. You're a fucking coward. I'll dial it in even more specific. Do you stand for the continued existence of your people? If the response is anything but an unequivocal yes, you're a coward. You're a coward, and the world is a better place without you. There are no exceptions to this rule. I can forgive you for being a coward. But like everything else that I can forgive, we have to call it what it is. Tom, you're Asian. Do you stand for the continued existence of Asian people? Tom? Sound off in the comments. It's going to be an unequivocal yes. Guaranteed. Roger, you're vaguely ethnic. Do you stand for the continued existence of your people? Of course you do. It's going to be an unequivocal yes. I don't even look. Joey, yeah, there you go. There you go. White people aren't even allowed to have a people. Of course, thank you. Unequivocal. Boom. Unequivocal and no hesitation. Roger, unequivocal, no hesitation. Now, because I know these are my brothers and my sisters, Emmy, do you stand for the continued existence of white people? Emmy. Turtle, do you stand for the continued existence of white people? Guaranteed it's going to be an unequivocal yes. And guaranteed, if we were surrounded, thank you, David popping up for the Celts. Do you understand this? And guaranteed, if we were surrounded by a completely diverse ethnic group, every single one of these people would respond exactly the same way. This is what it is to be. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Yes after yes after yes. Stone, Turtle, David, Joel. I like Celts because they produce the most redheads per capita. Roman, do you stand for the continued existence of your people? Of course you do. There's nothing hateful about it. In fact, if you don't stand for the 14 words, no matter what your bloodline is, if you are a black man and you are afraid to say we must secure the existence of our people and a future for black children, you are nothing. You're a coward. Here's another dodge. Well, I think it's just one race, the human race. Okay. So when we start putting labels on it, you're a coward. You're a coward. And until we can get past this cowardice, we're not going to be able to have the necessary conversations that we have to have until we can get past this basic thing of being able to call something what it is. If truth makes me racist, then I'm freaking racist. But I'm going to continue to speak that truth. Everybody right now, they're waiting for it. They're waiting for it. I'm going to continue to speak that truth, even if it, come on, anybody else want to jump in? I'm going to continue to speak that truth if it short dicks every cannibal on the Congo and hair lips every hillbilly on Buck Creek. I'm going to continue to speak that truth. Oh, you don't like me because I'm a racist? If I need another friend, I'll feed a stray dog. There are no exceptions to that rule either. Amy Biehl and the Boer genocide. That was the bullet point. Amy Biehl and the Boer genocide. It is an absolute tragedy. We've been reduced to this point. It is an absolute tragedy what is happening to the Boers. It is a point of honor that we finally have a president that will acknowledge the priority refugee status of the people who are being, because the last president denied that it was even happening. The last president denied that it was even happening, and when it came to a public forum, when it was actually being talked about in the media, every single arm of the propaganda, every single wing of the propaganda arm went into damage control. This isn't happening. Racist dog whistles, all these other things. These people are being butchered, man. Do some homework on the Boer genocide. These are black men that are going into these farmsteads and putting joker cuts on 7-year-old girls. Do a dive. 7-year-old girls, joker cuts. And there are college-educated white people here in the United States that will say, well, that's the inevitable result of the violent colonialism of white people, and white people taking over that region, exploiting the resources, and colonialism will always end up. Okay, let's talk about colonialism for a minute, shall we? Okay, because the way I remember it, when we showed up, well, in South Africa, there was nothing, and we basically built it. In Rhodesia, let me see, when we showed up, you guys had no written language, hadn't invented the wheel, were basically hunter-gatherer, Stone Age, shitting in your own backyard. And let me see, those evil colonialists, they gave you, what was it? Roads. Let me see, built an electrical grid, showed you the joys of indoor plumbing and sustainable agriculture, equipped industry, industrialized the farms, gave full employment to everyone, doubled your life expectancy, and cut your infant mortality rate in half. God, what terrible people. Why wouldn't you want to butcher us? The reality of the situation versus how it's depicted. And you notice, guys, and George, because I said I was going to try to hold it together, right, the liberal equivalent. Yeah, but did you see what she was wearing? Yeah, you're right, Joey. By the way, Joey, Sultan of Sarcasm, good to see you here. I missed you during the roll call. All of human history is colonialism. Yes, thank you. Thank you. This is where we are. And George, at the very beginning, I said if I can hold this together and maintain the focus without getting angry about it, because we shouldn't get angry about it. We cannot give in to the anger about this. We don't have that anger as a luxury. We have to be determined. In the same sense that after Trump won the election, we don't have the luxury, right, of going in for nitpicking and targeted jabs at our opponents. They do people need to be arrested and locked up? Damn right they do. And eventually that's going to happen. But for right now, we've got to focus on fixing things. We've got to focus on fixing things. Now, that means that in Europe, we got to give those people the help that they need. We got to give those people the motivation they need. And all of my people here who are people of faith, we got to be praying for them every night, man. There you go, thoughts and prayers. No, bro. You need to be keeping your people in our prayers. You need to, definitely. You have to. There is strength in that. Getting back to who was it? Pine One? Was it Pine One? Good Lord, man. One little comment that popped in. Maybe that's my Fed. Maybe that's like, I don't know. Maybe that's the Fed that's handling my case, and he just happens to be a person of faith. Whatever. Um, we've got to anchor it in faith. We have to anchor it in faith, or we're anchoring it in nothing, particularly where Europe is concerned. Because keep in mind that Christianity / Catholicism, and go ahead and miss me with that Judeo part, leave that out, skip it, don't, just pass me by with that. Christianity and Catholicism are what culturally held together Mother Europe. And now you have Orban in Hungary, and you have the Polish who are coming out and saying, we need an alliance. We need an alliance in Europe like NATO, but a white Christian NATO type alliance. Poland, Hungary. Probably Romania will get on board. All the old communist bloc countries will get on board with that. I promise you. We're at a tipping point. We're seeing it, and it's coming together. And we have to be able to accept the victories of that. Every time we get a setback, every time we see the globalists pull what they did, where they overturn the election results in Romania, or where they try to lock up Marine Le Pen. Were you guys paying attention to that earlier this week? Yeah, they tried to. Thank you, Brian. Cool, right on. Thank you for that, dude. That's why I know I can count on you, man. I love this. Order the Dragon. Well, order the Dragon. Don't forget the Eagles of Antioch in Syria, right? Whether it's Syrian Christians or whether it's Russians that are left over from the Cold War era, or just right up until the coup took place that overthrew Assad, you've got people who are looking out for you have the Eagles of Antioch who are looking out for Christians in Syria, right? Sometimes this is going to be, actually all the time, this is going to be what ultimately unites us, okay? This is something that we have to take strength in, and we should be taking strength in, right? The Maggot mob are out. They are out in force, man. They are out in force because they are seeing, and we need to take that again as a badge of honor. They would not be out like this if we weren't winning. Okay, don't let them gaslight you with all this stuff that they're, that oh yeah, everybody's having buyer's remorse about Trump, and the stock market's down. Everybody sees their 401ks going down. They're all turning on him, man. They're all going to jump ship, and you're gonna. If that were truly the case, they wouldn't have needed to put together that hands-off rally, okay? That hands-off rally was not grassroots, okay? This was funded by Soros-funded NGOs, every bit of it, from the signs to the organization to all the other things that are put together. They wanted to make, and the media on board like they always are, to try to carry the message. They carried the optics of it because they know that people respond to optics. They want the people who are supporters of the administration to be sitting back going, oh man, maybe we're wrong about this. Oh no, we're going to, because fear is a powerful motivator. What they didn't count on is the fact that we're past that now. We're past that now. None of us care. Because again, this is that hill with 3 crosses on it that we are willing to die on. If we were truly up against it, if people were truly turning on Trump, countries wouldn't already be coming to the table, cutting their tariffs to try to stay in our good graces. If that were the case and people were turning on Trump, the Democrats' approval rating wouldn't still be at a legendary historical low of 21%. They have nothing. So they were reaching out with everything, and they're becoming increasingly desperate. This big to-do and all these rallies that Maddow fella and that Stelter bitch can't stop talking about, all these things that are going on right now. Protest in every city across the, with the amount of money that Elon has, if we really needed to do something like that, we could triple the output. We could triple the output and we could triple the turnout. Why? Because you don't have to pay us to stand for what we're ready to believe in. And we've got Elon in our corner. So if it becomes incumbent upon us to make an even bigger thing, here's the difference though. We could come up with twice the turnout and we would get 0 coverage. The news would be about anything else in the world but that. The same way that the news is about anything else in the world but him rescuing those people from the space station. They are controlling the grazer's perception. Don't be a grazer. This is simple. Oh, well, U.S. citizens are being detained in mistaken sweeps and sent off to Salvadoran prisons. No, stop. Please stop. This would be a hell of a lot easier if we hadn't spent the last 4 years with the borders wide open, letting these third world maggots cross over unvetted, taking over apartment complexes in American cities. We watched this go on. And we were told that we needed bipartisan support and all these bills and all this funding to secure the border. And Trump's been in for 74 days. Have we taken a good look at the border? Look at any day under Biden on our southern border. Any day. Pick one at random. Thousands of people waiting on the other side, waiting, looking for that hole in the fence, looking for a chance to jump across. Look at the border now, and it's crickets because they know. You have to understand, you were dealing with lesser mortals. You were dealing with less evolved primates, shall we say. Whether we're talking about the border jumpers coming from third world holes in Central and South America, or whether we're talking about Middle Eastern, the dogs walking upright. They respond to three things: fear, pain, and force. We give them a little bit of that, they get the message. It's unbelievable. This. What about due process? Where was there was a due process for letting him in, and everybody seems strangely unconcerned about that. It was a violation, and the Supreme Court even said so, for them to be flying people in from foreign countries, not just leaving the border open, but actually flying people in and dropping them off in swing states. This happened for years. Nothing. So pardon me if I couldn't give two flying at six rolling donuts what is going on right now. If that makes me a bad person, well, then I guess I'll just have to be a bad person. But I'm not playing the game anymore. We're past it, or we should be past it. They sponsored this rally, and it was huge, and the optics were big, and all of the things that came up. But keep in mind, this was not organic. This was not organic. January the 6th, organic. Say what you want about how that turned out, but we're talking 250,000 people on the ground, and nobody had to pay them to be there. They all showed up. That is what we are capable of when we have had enough. They are at historic lows in their approval rating. They have no power. They have lost both houses of Congress. The district courts are throwing up their injunctions, but ultimately those are going to be overruled. We are going to continue to deport scumbags. And that's all we're going to hear about is the mistakes that get made in the process. I'll tell you unequivocally, I don't care. I don't care anymore. I don't have the luxury of caring anymore. Caring and half measures and compromise are what got us to this point. So no, I don't care anymore. I'm not going to hold back speaking the truth. Not that I've ever been known for, not that I've ever been known for holding back my opinions, but these opinions are all grounded in facts, demonstrable facts, ODP facts, objective, demonstrable, provable. You down with ODP? Yeah, you know me. We're going to have the conversations that need to be had. We're going to say the things that need to be said. And while here in America, we've got to look for common ground because of that unpleasant historical thing that sort of forced the working class together. We've got to look for solutions on that front. But this is no longer black versus white. In America, it's no longer black versus white. It's right versus left. But more to the point, it is literal good versus evil at this point. What is good in my estimation, and the statement that I'm trying to make, what is good is anything that represents the cultural interests of the West, the autonomy of the individual, the sovereignty of the individual, and all of the cultural mores that go along with Western civilization, up to and including Christianity / Catholicism. Argument for another time. But since Pine One pointed that out, yes, ultimately we have to be a Christian nation, or we're going to crumble. Is he talking about a theocracy? Call it what you need. I don't have to call it a theocracy, but I will tell you point blank that I identify as a Christian nationalist. A white Christian nationalist, for whatever that's worth to you. But I do identify as a white Christian nationalist. Sorry, not sorry. So if what comes out of it is a theocracy, okay. But even if we don't get to the actual theocracy, we at least have to be grounded in those principles. What was it that the founders said? That the Constitution and all of our founding documents were established for a moral people and would suffice for no less than a moral people. And we are anything but a moral people right now. Even though we're catching our snap, even though we're coming around. But anyone who stands in the face of that is out. Anyone who stands in opposition to that, as far as I'm concerned, has made themselves the enemy. They have made themselves the enemy. You are telling me to my face, in not so many words, that you want to see my people vanish from the face of the earth. And I am supposed to take that and go forgive and forget? Not today. You are telling me that the system of government and the pattern of culture that my people and my kind established and put into place, that is found nowhere else on the planet, that is God's highest expression of himself through human DNA on this planet in the form of representative government. And I stand by every bit of that as well. You tell me you want to erase that off the face of the earth, you are my enemy. You come from my blood, you come from my culture, you come from my faith, you come from my people. Come hard or stay home. But may I suggest, before you finalize your plans to make a move in that direction, you take at least a cursory examination of a history book. We let certain demographics, and I'm speaking with regard to Europeans as well as Slavs, for my Slavic brethren that are out there, we let certain human demographics twist our heads up and twist our interests up and put us in opposition to one another in brother wars. For as much as I support Vladimir Putin, for as much as I support the Russian people, I hate watching this war because it is Slav fighting Slav. The very survival of our people, our blood, our culture, and our faith depends on what we do over the course of the next 10 years. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm speaking facts. We either pull it together now or we will vanish. How do I reconcile that with the Bible saying that we win? God's people win. But Christ was nailed, scourged, tortured, and murdered for all people and all bloodlines. His love doesn't know any bounds. That's why all this stuff that I'm saying about taking care of my own, this doesn't extend to hating anyone else. That blood was shed for all bloodlines. Whoever is going to carry the torch for that faith is going to be determined by what happens over the course of the next 10 years. We can spend those 10 years white fighting white, Euro fighting Euro, Slav fighting Slav, Slav fighting Euro, and any of the things that we spent an entire century doing and destroyed our own interests. Did anybody else do that? That is how amazing our people and our blood are. We had to come along and destroy ourselves because no one else could. And now, even from a position of weakness, we're still holding on. We can continue to carry that torch. And I believe that we will, and I believe that we should, and I believe that we are divinely ordained to do so. Your mileage may vary. As George is just saying down here, and I couldn't agree more, brother. No more brother wars. No more brother wars. The only war that I want to see right now is for the survival of the West and the preservation of Christendom. That is the only war that I want to get behind right now. And as I've said before multiple times in this sermon, that is a hill with 3 crosses on it that I am willing to die on. I hope that you share that sentiment because I read the book. We win. So when you step up to oppose that, we will see you on the front lines across the barricade, chin down, knuckles up. And to quote one of my favorite movies, I can promise you a day of reckoning that you will not live long enough to never forget. I am the Reverend, that is the gospel. I would like to close with a prayer. Lord God, for everyone who's gathered here today, I feel blessed. I feel blessed that they're indulging a crazy, loud old man. But I feel blessed that you have given me the gift of oration. I feel blessed that you have removed any fear that I ever had of speaking my mind in front of folks. And I pray that someone out there is having their eyes open, having the scales pulled from those eyes, that maybe they heard about something tonight that they'd never been aware of before, and it sends them down a rabbit hole that gets that mind to clicking and changes their worldview. I pray that people fully grasp the message that I'm trying to convey about walking in the light of your truth and loving one's people without hating anyone else. I hope that they grasp the message of maintaining the strength in the face of adversity. I hope that they grasp the enormity of what it is to be in a fight for the preservation of Christendom. We were here for the Crusades, Lord. Well, we might be here for the big one, if it is your will. And I prayed for this before, Lord. I prayed for this before. Send me into that valley of dry bones and let me raise you an army. Because I remain here to serve the kingdom, Lord. I will stand beside every righteous man who is willing to look in the face of the things that want to destroy the good that you have brought to this world, the beauty that you have endowed in us through the civilization that we created for your glory, Lord. When we look across Mother Europe and all those chapels, those magnificent chapels that were built for what? To honor you, to honor your kingdom. The places we have gone and the things that we have done to carry the word, to defend weaker people in other countries, from other cultures, from the minions of the adversary, as we did during the Crusades, Lord. Did we do that for? No, that was for the glory of the kingdom. And you may be calling on us to do it again. And all I can stand for here, Lord, is to say, we will stand. We will stand for the kingdom. I promise you, every righteous man on this feed, every righteous man who is listening to the sound of my voice, we are ready to make that sacrifice, Lord. We are ready to step up, chin down, knuckles up, and take the fight to the enemy. I only ask that in this moment, you pull the scales from these people's eyes. You help me to pull the scales from these people's eyes and let them be reminded Let them be reminded not only of the strength and the greatness that is innate to us in your creation of us, but to remind us who's got our back going into this fight so we can step forward fearless and take that fight straight to the Father of lies. Meet him where he stands and crush him into dust. Deus Volt, Lord, Deus Volt, Omnia ad regnum, all things for the kingdom. We stand ready to serve that kingdom, Lord. In the name of the risen Christ, washed in his blood, our debt paid in full. In the name of the risen Christ, we come before you in counsel and stand ready to serve the kingdom. Amen. God bless y'all, man. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. Didn't stick to the script today, did I? Tragic. Don't care. I said what needed to be said. Spirit moves me to speak a certain way. That's where we're going, right? And that's really what I'm about these days. That's really what I'm about these days. But you notice what was missing today? Anger. And I feel pretty good about that. I was afraid that I was going to. I've really, really been praying a lot on that. I've really been working a lot on it. Because ultimately that's a hindrance. There's nothing for us to be mad about right now. Outraged? Certainly. Outraged? Certainly. Plenty to be outraged about. Nothing to be angry about. How does it serve to be angry about what happened in Frisco, Texas? How does it serve? Doesn't matter. What's done is done. There's no surprises there, either with the incident itself or the reaction to it. There's no surprises there. So why are we angry? Just another day. Instead of wasting the time on the rage and spinning our wheels, how about we actually communicate with other people and start getting our heads together with like minds and kindred spirits? How about we put our ass under some iron and make ourselves a little bit stronger for the fight that's coming and that's already here? How about we stand for an hour in front of a heavy bag beating on that sucker? How about we spend a couple hours with an instructor, even if it's paying a little extra money for some privates, to get some hand-to-hand skills down, whether it's with weapons or whether it's with stubbers and stabbers? Tom Hollyby, by the way, you need to look it up. Ashigaru Defense, he's going to be doing another stubbers and stabbers class coming up, and you want to be a part of that. Oh, you guys in the Northwest, I can't get down to Texas. Yeah, we got somebody in Washington now, man, so you got no excuses. Spend the time. Because the anger, what does the anger do? What does the anger do? Even the hatred that I hold for some of these people is visceral and it's deep and it's real, but I can't let it burn me up, and I'm not going to let it burn me up anymore. There's no point. Why am I doing that? Instead of doing that, I need to be working on steeling myself for the fight. Whether that's building skills, whether that's preaching the word, whether that's reading the word, whether it's having my face in scripture, whatever it is, there are plenty more constructive things I could be doing than just sit around being angry. Training removes anger, doesn't it, Bart? Yeah, to a degree, it does. It does. But anyway, I'm happy that you guys showed up. If you guys want to drop me something, that's cool. I'll pass that digital collection plate around like I do every Sunday. I'll pass it around, and if you want to drop something, I'm on Cash App, I'm on PayPal, I'm on Venmo, I'm on all the Facebook Pay, all that good stuff. You guys want to drop me something, that's totally cool. If you can't, I understand, man. If you can't, I understand. We're still shaking it off. We're still getting our heads together. And the real element of the Trump economy hasn't kicked in yet. By the end of this thing, it's going to be beautiful. But you can't right now. I get it. Here's what you can do. Share the sermon with some other people. If you got a Facebook feed or whatever, repost it. Invite some people next week, whatever it is. Spread the word, man. Fat, toothless, crippled crane operator with some opinions. He gets on rants and raves every couple hours every Sunday. Like mind, kindred spirit. Maybe you'll have something that you can check out. Maybe there's something that'll offer for you. But here's what you can do, not just for me, but for yourselves. Stone, if you're still in the house, what are they going to do, man? Hashtag, baby, live the three. Live the three. What are you talking about, living the three? Live the three prime directives. The rules of life over here on planet Bart. Rule number one, signal to noise. Right now, the signal to noise ratio is all jacked up. The noise is the distractions. The noise is the deceptions. The noise is the lies. You've got to be the signal. That signal's got to be the truth. That's got to be hard-hitting truth. That's going to be unapologetic truth. That's going to be unequivocal truth. And you got to be able to speak that to get that signal through the noise, get into people's heads, and be able to turn the tide. Rule number two, light in the darkness, and they will try to bury you with the darkness the same way they do with the noise. They'll smother you with it, make you think there is nothing left but darkness. They will try to dehumanize, demoralize, emasculate you with that darkness. You have got to be that light in the darkness, that light that punches through the darkness to the other side to reach those guys on the other side of the fog, or the guys that hold the light long enough that the people who are steering through the fog trying to find it can find it. You've got to be light in a world full of darkness. But first and foremost, guys, you already know the drill. You know the iron rule. The iron rule. Strength in a world full of weakness. And when I'm talking about strength, I'm not just talking this kind of strength. This is important. But it can't just be here. It's got to be here. It's got to be here. And fellas, yeah, even here, that strength has got to be there, and it's got to be on point. Why? Because without strength, none of the rest of it matters. Without strength, you are not going to be able to punch that signal through the noise. You are not going to be able to speak the truth unfettered. Without that strength, that's this kind of strength, to be able to speak that innate truth without fear. You need that kind of strength. Without strength, you will not be able to carry that light long enough for the other people wandering around in the fog to find that light in the darkness, and you damn sure won't have the tenacity to punch that light through the fog to witness for the guys on the other side. So strength above all, man. Strength above all. Hate to get all Bruce Lee on you, but who knows what beauty has died out of the world for want of the strength to survive. It's true, though, man. It's true. So you got to be strong. And when you pray, guys, and you should be praying, you should have your faces to scripture every night. At least one chapter. Pick a book. I'm in Isaiah right now. At least one chapter a night, man. Put it away. Get your face in some scripture. When you pray, you hit your knees and you pray for that strength, and you pray for clarity and discernment. Because no matter how strong you are, the deceiver is out there. He is the father of lies, and he will try to slip you up and plant those. So pray for the strength, but the clarity and discernment and how it is to be applied. I will pray for you guys. You guys pray for me. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. God bless each and every one of y'all, man. If you're out there wandering in the darkness, man, I urge you to find the light. Boss man's got the plan. Carpenter's got your back. Deus Vult. God bless. See you next Sunday.